Hi, my name is Emily McCoy and I am a certified teacher librarian, and I am excited today to present to you a little bit about library story time. This is one of my very favorite things to do in the library, is to read aloud to children, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of it and a few tips and tricks on how to be an amazing library story time person. So let's get started. So first of all, story time in my mind is the heart and soul of the library. And the reason that I feel this way is because there's nothing more captivating than having a bunch of little students sitting there listening to you read a book. It's honestly one of my favorite things. So reading aloud is important, and the research shows that listening comprehension is an important part of reading comprehension. Reading comprehension meaning understand what they are reading. And reading aloud is the most important activity for reading success. And reading aloud can improve pronunciation, flow, clarity, and practice for intonations, pausing, and emphasis. Why is it good to hear the librarian read? First of all, the child gets the experience listening to an adult read. And they also learn how to pay attention to someone that is not their parent. So what story time teaches students is, first of all, to sit quietly, how to sit quietly while someone is speaking. Engaged, they become engaged in a story and see classmates get engaged as well. And performance, to experience the public performance of literature. Library story time helps students learn about the variety of selections. As a librarian chooses a variety of books from fiction to nonfiction and different authors, this will help them learn about a variety of cultures and the different ways people read and tell stories. Library story time fosters a sense that the library is a magical place, instilling in the students a lifelong love for the library. Storytime makes reading a fun activity. Students will associate reading with excitement and adventure. Then they will look at reading as a joy and not a chore. Storytime can include music. You can sing a song or learn a new song. It can also include rhymes like nursery rhymes or chants. I found that by using music and rhymes, it actually helps the students remember things much better. Crafts, a simple hands-on activity with paper or other supplies that supplements the story that you're reading. Puppets. Puppets can be made of all kinds of materials, including a paper sack, a sock, even your hand. Storytime can also include a demonstration, how to do or make something. Dance or movement such as clapping your hands, just moving your body in any way. I find as time goes by, kids have a lot harder time sitting still than they used to, and so by having them do some kind of movement during story time, that really helps them stay engaged and participate. So teaching oral reading, or how to read aloud. So it's important as us as librarians that we model how to read aloud. So how to incorporate the book into the storytelling process. I love to ask them questions that will keep them engaged. One of my favorite is, what do you think will happen next? Or, do you think this character is a good guy or a bad guy? Or, how do you think this story will end? And one of the most important things is using voice inflection and different tones to show emotion or a different character. So if it's kind of a happy-go-lucky kind of character, then you want to talk like this, like Jubal's wish, right? But if it's a grumpy old sailor, then maybe you want to pull a different expression and maybe use a little bit lower voice. So one of the most important things is to just have fun and smile. When it comes to choosing what kind of book you're going to read for library story time, you want to pick different stories for different age groups. Just because kids are in the upper grades doesn't mean that we can't read them a picture book. In fact, that's usually what I will read to them, but I might read them one that has a little bit more developed storyline. And also you can ask the teacher what they are learning in class and read something to them about that to emphasize what they're learning. Bilingual story time. This is one that gets me excited just because it can benefit not just the native speakers by creating a welcome environment for them, but it's also a great educational opportunity to read in both languages. So if you can find the same book, maybe in your language and a different language, that's just going to just think of the amazing conversations that you can have about language and how it works. And it will also help them realize that their language has value too. So how to get your students ready for story time. If they have not experienced this, it's kind of important to teach them how to do it. So the librarian or the teacher can discuss the following before story time. First, reading. Help them understand that the librarian will be doing the reading and they might help. The students will sit on the floor in front of the librarian's chair. Or if you could also have them sit in chairs, but you just want to make sure that they are facing you, because the best thing you can do is when you go to read the book, you actually want to hold it up like this so that they can see it. So as you're reading, you would actually hold the book up, and then you would kind of turn your head and talk, and then show them the pictures. So next, you don't want them to interrupt. One thing about story time is often students will want to tell you a story about something that's very similar to what you're reading about. And I always ask them, is this a story or a question? Because often the comments can make story time go too long. And so sometimes you kind of have to curb their enthusiasm a little bit. But they're not to interrupt. The students are not to blurt out without being called on by the librarian. Also, raise your hand if they have questions, and to refrain from students telling their own story or comment. And then, of course, always teach the students to say thank you to the librarian for their time. Reread with our children because it gives both them and us an education of the heart and mind, of intellect and empathy. We read together and learn because stories teach us how to love. I love this quote because to me it perfectly encapsulates story time and the power that story time can have. So thank you so much for listening to my presentation. If you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to me on Facebook, and I hope that you make it a great day. Thank you very much.